Creepy things happen before the grave.
I'm Being Hunted by a Pack of Werewolves by Cesly1987. I searched the crowd coming onto the train, like a predator watches a flock of sheep milling about in the field. I watched for who was awake and who wasn't, who was looking around and who had their head down. I was looking for what separated the wolves from the sheep, or in this case, the sheepdog amongst the sheep. I saw him bundle in with a herd of people onto the packed subway car, his head up and scanning, choosing to stand rather than sit, his back to the corner. He was prior military or law enforcement. I could tell by the way he stood and the look in his eyes. He also had an aura of violence about him. Being in my line of work, it does you good to smell the violence on a man before you get close. He spotted me as I spotted him because we were both doing the same thing, people watching, albeit I was doing it for different reasons. I gave him a smile, just flirtatious enough with a hint of sadness. I knew how to attract men. It was my job anyways. I knew how to be just mysterious enough to bait the hook for a man like him. Men like him love a damsel in distress. Now I would sit and let him stew with the idea of me on his mind. We had 3 stops until I needed to get off, and I needed to know if he was in it for the long haul. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I looked to see it was a text from a blocked number. It said, "At 2200 hours, the quarry has entered the designated hunting grounds. The game is afoot. 11 hours, 59 minutes remaining." I frowned when I saw I was lumped into a group chat with 4 other of the members. One said, "Enjoy your last train ride, bitch." I already knew who it was before I even read the signature. Mikhail. So that meant that the other 3 numbers were his packmates. The packmaster, Alexei, was one of the numbers. They were already in the area. I had to move fast. I pulled the red scarf tighter around my neck. I lowered my head to smell the scent of my sister's perfume. I needed a reminder for why I was doing this. Of course, I couldn't take off the scarf. I was instructed to wear it the whole time of the trial, or I would automatically forfeit and lose. It was the same perfume my sister always wore that they were using to hunt me down. After 2 more stops, the train was almost empty. It was literally just me, the man, and an older couple at the other end of the car. I had to do this now. I walked up to him. He was already watching me in the reflection of the window while he pretended to be looking down at his phone. When I got a couple of steps away, he looked up and gave me a polite, questioning stare. "I don't usually do this, but..." I ran my hand through my hair nervously, putting a little tremble in my voice for good measure. I leaned in close to break out the doe eyes. "You wouldn't happen to be a cop, would you? Or do you know any cops?" His eyes widened, and he looked me over. I had everything where he could see and put 2 and 2 together. He looked at the large purple bruise on my wrist as I played nervously with my hair. I was leaned in enough for him to see the makeup hiding my black eye, and the top button of my blouse was undone so I could keep his attention. He put the clues together, or at least the clues I wanted him to. He asked in a low voice, "Are you in danger, ma'am?" Jackpot. I knew it. He was cop or former cop. He jumped right into action, took the bait nicely. I pulled the scarf up in an attempt to cover my face and looked around the car nervously. "Can you talk with me over here?" I said, nodding in the direction of the cramped area between the cars. He nodded back in agreement, and we crept into the small, dark compartment. Once the door was firmly shut behind us, I let the silence hang in the air for good effect. We both stood close to each other and swayed lightly back and forth with the motion of the speeding train. Lights strobed softly through the windows, and I could hear his breathing. I wonder if he was close enough to smell my sister's perfume. He waited patiently for me to continue. "I'm in trouble," I said softly. "I don't know who to go to for help. I can't go directly to the cops, but I need someone like them to keep me safe." "Just tell me what happened, miss," the man said in a gentle voice. It was the practiced patience of a man who's done this for a living. "I'm in trouble," I said. "I'm on the run from some men I used to work for, but there's a place in the city where I can go and be safe. To be free." The man nodded slowly in understanding. I saw his hand subconsciously touch the left side of his jacket. He probably had a gun in there and was feeling it for comfort. I have to get there within the next couple of hours. If I don't hurry, they'll kill me. Please. I opened the latch on my purse to show him stacks of money held together with rubber bands. I can pay you. I have 30,000. His eyes widened at this, and he finally spoke. First off, answer my question truthfully. This man, is he your pimp? And this money, did you steal it from him? Yes, I said. He is my pimp. He and his crew forced me at a young age to work for them. And no, this is money I've saved up over the years to escape. He will say it's his money, but it is my body that earned it. A little anger entered my voice at this. It seemed to impress the man. I was glad I didn't have to completely lie to him about everything. Where do you have to go? He asked. Not far. I have to meet up with a contact to tell me the location of the safe house. The contact is at the next stop. How many men does your boss have? He countered quickly. 4, including him, I answered. He considered this for a while. I could see him weighing the situation in his mind. Finally, he answered, 4 is not bad. I'll escort you to your contact for half the money. If I want to bail after that, I'll bail. If it's not completely effed, I'll take you all the way. I couldn't help but smile. He was confident and pragmatic, and that was a good sign. But he believed Mikhail and the pack were only humans, and he was sorely wrong. Deal, I say. Are you a cop? He gives me a half smile. I'm military police officer. Just back home for a couple of days for my father's funeral. It was yesterday. I'm shipping back out again in 2 days. Boy, I could pick 'em. Military training and a cop. We were coming up on the stop now. I needed him to be a little more wary of the job he agreed to. Him being too confident will get us both killed. The pack will be on our trail soon. The doors opened onto the platform. I told my new hired man we needed to find Dmitri Circle. He walked up to a giant map plastered on the subway wall. Anybody else would have just used a phone, but he said he didn't need his phone. I was now doubting my decision with his boomer traits he was showing. I saw a group of men walking towards us while he was distracted with the map. He did throw a glance at them and must have seen them as a non-threat. They were just punky teens acting tough, but I had to put him on his toes. There were 3 of them, the tallest one leading the friends. He was one of those obnoxious people who talk with their hands. As he came close to me, he was waving his hands around, describing some dumb thing and his friends did last night. I looped the handle of the purse around his arm and screamed as I grabbed onto him. Let go, asshole! I screamed at him. My free hand slipped to my stun gun in my coat pocket, and I gave him a jolt to the stomach. He gurgled and dropped to the ground like his clothes weighed 1,000 pounds. The other 2 reacted in anger, as expected. Sukai Blatt! And you whore! Came from their lips. Well, they weren't wrong. My bodyguard spun around and intercepted the 2 as they gave chase to me. He collided hard with one of them. A knee to the groin at full charge was enough to drop the punk into a whimpering mess. The last one turned to swing on the bodyguard. The bodyguard stepped under the punch to execute perfectly timed counterattack. The right hook knocked this kid smooth out. I stood in amazement. I originally planned to use my hired guard as a sacrifice to slow down Mikhail and the pack, but maybe we had a chance. Maybe we would both make it. But there I was, being stupid again. I thought I had killed foolish thoughts like naive hope a long time ago. The tall man I tased was beginning to sit up. I saw the flash of a silver handgun being pulled out from the back of his pants. Oh God, this wannabe gangster actually had a gun? This was getting out of hand. I don't want the idiot to get shot. The bodyguard pulled out his own gun much faster and pointed it down at the thug. Don't do it, punk, the bodyguard yelled. I saw the thug hesitate, gun still pointed downwards by his side, but I could see the look of defiance in his young face, and I could see the cold gaze of violence in my bodyguards. It was a pissing contest that would end in death. I reached back into my deep coat pockets and pulled out my pepper spray. Yeah, I had more utilities than Batman. I aimed high and let loose an arch of burning liquid. The stream hit the thug square in the face, and he scrunched his face in pain. Leave him, I said as I reached over to pull my bodyguard's arm down. He stared in surprise at the now squirming and screaming thug on the ground. We hurried to the long set of stairs leading up to the subway. In our long climb up, I heard my phone vibrate again, and I looked down at it in my hand. I smell a man with her. The trace of gunpowder and a gun oil on him. Cop, maybe. She has pepper spray. She's heading south. It was a number I didn't recognize in the same group chat, but I knew it was another pack member. As we crested the stairs onto the snowy night street, I turned to look back down into the subway at the bottom of the stairs. There he was, walking up with his hands in his pockets. When he tilted his head up to follow us, the fluorescent lights in the subway reflected off them to make them flash green and gold. The corner of his lip curled up in a snarl. I don't know him personally, but I recognized him from the brothel and knew his name. He was short with a stocky frame, quartered muscles bulging in his neck, his black hair slicked back, matching his nicely cut goatee. He moved with an eerie weightless grace as he began stalking his way up the stairs. He removed his hands from his pockets and I could see the claws beginning to form. "You smell pepper spray, Ivan? It's bear mace," I yelled at him loudly. My bodyguard turned to see the approaching man. I let loose with a continued stream of mace, my arm working in a circular motion, dousing the steps with the face-burning liquid. Ivan was a good 20 feet out of the range of the arcing stream of mace, but he was also downwind. He let out an audible growl before he sneezed and started shaking his head, his eyes and nose already leaking like faucets, mucus slinging everywhere. "Damn, talk about a bad reaction," the bodyguard said. We were both at the top now, staring. Ivan was in the throe of pain. Between the blur of his furious head shaking, I could see his transformation coming further along. His goatee was now a beard. The texture of his hair took a dark, fur-like quality. His arms had gotten longer, and the bones at the end of his fingers were jutting out of the skin into sharpened points. I could see his own blood dripping from his hands, the white tips of the bone claws stabbing through the skin. My bodyguard froze in amazement at the horrid sight before him. I believe this was the moment he regretted taking this job. I had to grab him by the arm to pull him away. "Dimitri's circle should be around here," I told him as we ran down to the snow-covered street. "My informant will be in room 432 at the Fountainwood Apartments." It was the bodyguard that spotted the apartment shortly after. It was a run-down square brick building rising high into the sky. It was dotted with many windows, most broken. The locked security door was also broken, and we just let ourselves into the complex. Inside, the volume was tumultuous, with loud tenants and thin walls. Trash left to stink up the hallways, leaking ceilings and broken hallway lights. I had lived in places like this before. On the 4th floor, at the end of a long, dark hallway, we found 432. The bodyguard checked the stairwell entrance at the end of the hall to find it chained shut. If the pack found us, they could only come from one direction. "Do you need someone to come inside with you?" he asked as I began knocking on the door. Already we could smell a strong scent of marijuana emanating through the door. "No, I'll be fine. Be lookout while I deal with whoever's inside," I reassured him. The door opened a crack, and I almost caught a secondhand high from the smell wafting out of the apartment. I saw a pretty female face peeking at me with a deadpan expression. "Oh, it's you," came a droning voice from behind the door. "I'm surprised you even made it." "Well, we're sitting ducks out here, lady," I told her in frustration. "Oh, yeah," replied the bored voice. "But only you can come in. Your friend has cop face. I have rules against showing my kindness to cops," she droned, her eye flicking to my bodyguard. "Sure thing, lady," my bodyguard said over his shoulder, looking agitated. "Rules are rules." The door closed, and I heard the chain bolt slide free. It opened again just enough for me to slip inside. It was like I walked into a hippie's dreamland. The room was decorated with black lights, glowing posters, and illicit vegetation, planted under heat lamps in the living room and kitchen. I scanned the small apartment. Only the girl and the stoner dude asleep on the couch. The sleeping stoner must have been a guard, because there was a sawed-off shotgun wedged underneath the sofa for him to reach for. I guess I wasn't considered enough of a threat to wake him up. "You have 3 choices for safe house," the woman explained. "You had choice of 3 different stops on the train, which each lead to their own specific informant. Each informant has location for 3 different safe houses. This should keep the hunters from knowing where you are going and cheating by just killing you when they get close to the safe house. That's like," the woman looked up and counted in her head, 9 different safe houses you could have picked. They know I'm here, so that narrows it down to 3 safe houses I could have possibly picked. I said impatiently. The stoner girl looked like she didn't understand. She flopped open a paper map to show me. There was a red circle around Fountain Woods, where we were, and 3 more dark circles around 3 locations spread out on the map. The circles on all 3 said Grandma's house. I'm so glad she thought this was funny. I looked at all 3 locations and decided on the closest one at a construction site. Why be fancy? Just make a mad rush straight up the middle. I made a mental note, nodded to her, and turned back to the door. I felt the woman staring at me like she was waiting for something. I'm ready to go, so bye? I said to her. Oh no, you gotta tell me which location you picked, she blurted. Aha, screw you, no I don't, I said back. I don't trust this idiot to not sell me out to the first wolf who came knocking. Yes, you do. I'll have to call and set it up, she said as she pulled out her phone. If they don't get my call, they won't be there. I stared at her for a while, pissed. Whatever. You put it on speakerphone so I can hear who it is, I demanded. Fine, said the woman, hitting speed dial on the phone. Where are you going? I waited until the phone was answered and an unfamiliar man's voice spoke up. The idiot lady looked at me to tell her where I was going. The construction site of Wicker Street, I answered. Extraction team will be en route. You have 11 hours left to get there. Good luck. The voice finished and hung up. I didn't like it, but I had no choice. I still expected whoever was on the phone to send an immediate message to the hunting pack, but maybe it was a good thing? Maybe it was a security protocol to keep the pack from paying off the teams at the safe houses to tell them where I was going. Hopefully, they were as confused as I was to keep the hunt fair. You can leave now, Red, the woman said. At first I didn't catch the reference because I was a brunette, tired and in a hurry. But it hit me a second later. She thought this was funny. It maybe even amused her to know I could be in the last hours of my life. I gave her a cold stare, and that's when I noticed a small tattoo on her neck. I didn't have to lean in close to already know what it was. It was the burning moon. It was a brand of ownership. It was Mikhail's brand. A tattoo he only gave to his personal favorites. She must have been a prostitute at some point like me. She was prettier than most. He gave her this sweet little spot dealing for him. She was kept in an apartment all for himself. How about I sweeten the pot a little? I said with a disarming smile. I popped open my handbag and her greedy eyes saw the cash within. How about I tip you for your services? You know, just to keep things between us girls. I'm thinking 1,000 for a secret like this, she said as she stepped in closer to glare down at the money, my hand rummaging around inside. Of course! Us ladies need to stick together to stay ahead of the wolves, I said cheerfully. They feed upon us and victimize us like sheep, I continued as I finally found what I needed. But you know, I paused for dramatic effect. She looked up from the money and into my eyes. Sometimes, we are the most dangerous wolf of all. My hand shot out of my purse and jammed a long metal fingernail filer into her neck. My other hand covered her mouth, and I forced her to the wall. Her eyes bulged as I muffled her scream. She bled out within seconds as I lowered her to the floor, blood pouring down one side of her like a leaky faucet. She wouldn't be running back to her master like a good pet now. I wiped the blood off on her clothes and slipped back into the hallway. The stoner asleep on the couch, still happily dreaming. Back in the hallway, my bodyguard didn't even turn to acknowledge me. He was focused on something at the far end of the hall. I quickly saw what it was. Ivan had found us, and he looked pissed. Ivan no longer looked human. The only reason we knew it was him was because the monster wore the same tattered clothes as Ivan. Now he was completely in his beast form. His snout and face covered with fur, shining golden eyes, muscle ripping through his clothes, bone claws long and curved. What sort of gun are you packing? I said with fear in my voice. It's Sean, by the way, he answered. Sean Uftarka. I thought you should know the name of the guy you're getting killed. As for my gun, it's nowhere big enough. Talking time was over as Sean leveled his pistol as the wolf began charging us. I flattened myself against the apartment's door as Sean let out 2 quick shots. Ivan staggered as part of his head combusted into red mist, but it did not drop him. He skidded off the hallway wall and continued running towards us, leaving a blood trail in his wake. The wolf was close now. He hooked his claws into the thin walls and began pulling himself up to run along the side of it. Sean panicked and fired 2 more shots. The first one missed, the second a shoulder glaze. When Ivan's forward momentum got him to the ceiling, he kicked off the wall with 4 limbs to shoot like an upside-down missile towards Sean. I opened the door to fall back into the apartment at the last instant. I saw Sean duck as the beast soared over him. Sean screamed out in pain. More gunshots went off in the hallway, mixed with screams and growls. I kicked the doorway back closed. I flipped around on my stomach to stare at the couch. I had to get that shotgun. I scrambled past the dead woman's body to snatch it up. As I stood up, the stoner finally awake and grabbed at me, panicked. I hit him in the nose with the butt of the shotgun to put him back into his slumber. As I returned my attention to the door, Sean and the wolf came bursting through. Sean crashed onto the ground with the wolf on top of him, taking a big bite out of Sean's left arm. Sean was covered with blood, and I noticed Ivan's legs and right arm were human again. I figured Ivan was dying from the gunshots to the head, but wasn't going to die soon enough for Sean to survive. As the wolf shook Sean back and forth like a rag doll, I steadily approached them and put the 2 barrels of the shotgun inches away from Ivan's exposed brain. With a thunderous boom, the wolf's head exploded all across the sidewall. Sean frantically kicked the headless body off and scrambled away, part of the wolf's snout still attached to his arm, now quickly transforming back into human teeth. I dropped to my knees to let out a sigh of relief. Sean backed up against the wall and just stared at the gory mess. "I quit, lady," he finally said. "Nope," I replied. "You have to finish this now. You killed an honored pack member. The only way you stay alive is if you leave with me." "But you killed him," he replied. "Semantics," I scoffed. "We both killed him. Besides, I'll just lie and say you did the whole thing, so we are in this together." "You're a bitch," he replied flatly. "Yeah, I know."